Welcome to another episode of I Mustache You Something. Uh, I apologize for our week hiatus. Uh, I I didn't get any complaints though, so I I think so people somehow managed to move on without our
Hurts my
weekly.
feelings. Hurts my feelings and no one complained.
I thought
Did
I'd
your
get like at least one person be like, "What happened this week?" There's like
did
no.
your beard get whiter, or are you wearing something? Like, what is
No,
this?
he got tanner, I think.
Oh, he
Oh,
got
Or
maybe
tan.
yeah.
he's wearing bronzer.
Yeah, the contrast, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Like I'm
yeah.
more brown, so equally white.
You look like I should call ICE.
I already did. Don't worry about it. We're good.
I don't know if like that's so there are so many things that used to be PC that aren't. I don't know if that was ever PC.
I think it's PC anywhere other than the state of Minnesota. If I'm gonna be honest. Like it's fine everywhere other than Minnesota.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
from what I read.
like the state of Minnesota exists and we know people.
Does it though? Does it?
Listen, they
I think it's a
had
suburb of Somalia, is what I
they
think it
they had
is.
minus 20 something degree weather.
Yeah.
Like the least we could do is I don't know.
Is
Like
sell them to Canada. I agree. No, I think we're on the same page. We can sell them to Canada. I think it would be fine. We get Greenland. Actually, some of the Dutch. We'll trade, equal trade.
I mean,
Greenland
honestly,
for like that's a fair trade.
I don't know if there's a lot of people in Minnesota right now that would like say, no, we don't want to be part of Canada. Like,
Actually, so obviously, so I'm from the Midwest, and it's this is all fun and games, and it's fun to joke about this, but there are real farmers and like small town people is and one of the best hospital in the world, also in that state, who are getting ground under. Just they just want to live their lives and and this whole media storm is kind of casting them in a bad light, and that's whether on either side, both sides, it's casting both sides in a bad light.
hmm.
And like I talk to these guys. There's like farmers who like milk cows every day and don't have time for anything. And the immigration issue is for farmers is more complex than than I would care to talk about here. But yeah, it's a thing. But anyway, it's fun to joke about Minnesota as long as you like ignore and hide from like the terrible tragedies that have happened.
I mean, isn't that true of everything, right? Like everything's
That's
funny
true. Yeah,
until it's
I think it's
not.
funny. Yeah, like the 200,000 men who died of despair in 2022. It's funny to make fun of men until you're like, well, 200,000 died in suicide, but what?
Yeah,
Ralph, tell me about the hat.
what a way
Yeah,
to
tell
bring
us
it
what.
down. It's
Yeah,
just turtles, bro. It's just turtles.
turtles,
No,
bro.
Turtles all
notice
the way down.
they're all joining hands. They're at a Mondani rally in New York
Good.
City, and
Dude,
they're
we're hitting all the awesome topics. Keep going.
I think
just
we're just
they
like who
just
can we
came from a
offend next?
pro-life rally in New York in DC yesterday, and they're out protesting uh, the ineffective snow plowing that occurred in the city yesterday due to the new socialism. That's what they're doing.
But is there any truth to that, or is it just like,
The turtles?
no, no, like wait, hold on. Is the
The snow
turtles
plowing.
actually connected, or the turtles is
No,
like
he's
No,
giving you a hard time.
right?
no, the turtles are just
So
turtles.
that I assumed, but the connection between the new mayor and the plowing, I
No,
can't
no,
imagine that has any connection either.
no, zero, zero.
Did you say anything at all that was of substance, or is it
Well,
all
there
just
was a pro-life rally this weekend, also at minus 10 degrees, that of course the media didn't cover. And Mondami, successfully plowed the streets of New York as they've been plowed for the last 50 years. So I think it was a sign of progress towards complete and utter socialism. So it's good.
did you catch the turtles all the way down reference?
No.
So it's like a so Mitch, you want to share?
Nope. Nope. Go ahead.
So it's actually one of my favorite arguments for really anything that like you're asking somebody to like walk it back and say like, okay, where does this come from? Where does that come from? And it's uh I guess like a like it's not a fable because there's no animals, but like it's like like a fake story of some kind. Like it's not an aphorism because it's too long. But it's a thing that involves a conversation with an old woman that's explaining is it flat Earth or is it just like sort of like how the world exists?
It's
Um,
dude, it's an infinite regress. That's what it is. It's like explains infinite regress. How
And
there's
goes
like
back to the turtles hatching the earth.
No, it's the turtle is holding like an elephant and the elephant is holding like something else and then everything like is sitting on top of this thing that sits on top of the elephant and then you ask well what's below the turtle and the answer is it's just turtles all the way down where it's like so anytime you don't want to explain something you just say it's turtles all the way down.
turtles all the way down. It's infinite regress. Let's not. Yeah.
So I like seeing the turtles, and the turtles are, you know, holding hands and
Yeah. Let's just
joining
get out of
together.
this without making jokes about Hinduism. That's all that's yeah, because that's where this I think it comes from. So let's just get out of this without making fun of Hinduism and just say it's a
Okay,
good
that
thing from the Hindu
I wasn't
culture.
planning on it, but then you did.
I didn't make fun of them. Yeah, I would never make fun of a human elephant god. I would never do that. I would never ever make fun of that.
Well, that's
Okay.
Ever.
actually one of the there's of course two different there's different causation arguments for that theists use for the existence of God. One of them are the causation as in, some kind of lateral causation. So where did I come from? Where the planets come from? Where the universe come from? Blah, blah, blah. But then there's the other causation argument. And it it plays off the turtle thing. It's like I'm sitting here in my chair. Okay. So what is keeping me up? Well, my chair. And what's keeping my chair up? Well, the floor. And what's keeping the floor up? Well, the earth. And what's keeping the earth up? Gravity. And you keep going down that route where you get to what is the thing that's keeping it all together. So it's a different type of
Yeah.
causation, not built going backwards like temporally, but built sort of even as it stands, like God is keeping it all together right now. That sort of is an argument that's lately been used by theists for, so it's not just turtles. It
That's
goes
just true.
it goes back to
Just
God.
it's God all the way down.
Yeah, it's God all the way down at the end, right? At the end, it's just God. The end is just God.
And now are we making fun of ourselves because
We
that
should
is
all
equally implausible and equally
Well, that's not
uh,
implausible. It's an argument that many atheists recognize there to be no real answer to. You know, you can go back to if you go back in time, you can go back to some sort of like multiverse, explanation or a simulation explanation. But what is keeping everything right now where it is? To go back to the cause of that is
the
sort of
unmoved
left
unmover.
yeah,
The unmoved mover.
left up in the air. So there's no real answer for that.
so
So
let
yeah,
me
there's
ask
no
you
need to
this.
make fun of us.
Are you ever tempted um to use the lack of existence of God as a lack of morality?
The lack of existence of God. What do you mean?
Like, for example, like let's say, you know, intellectually speaking, you happen so for me, like I not only experientially but intellectually can't say um that it holds water for me that God does not exist, right? It doesn't hold water for me that God exists in the same form or in the same concept that I understand God to be, right? Like there has to be this sort of like fuzzy edge of, I believe, God is Trinity, um, insofar as my human brain can understand God. Right? I understand that God created insofar as I can understand what it means to create. I understand that God is interested in our daily lives and interested in our salvation and acts accordingly, insofar as I can understand this infinite being consumed with a finite being, right? So there's always like a cataphatic, like I believe this, and an apophatic, and I understand that there's a limitation in my own human understanding, right?
Right.
But it's also tempting to say, yes, but let me fool myself into thinking that the fuzzy edges are more fuzzy or that the cataphatic convictions that I have, can be explained away by either, science or philosophy or like, it's questionable enough, right? And it would be much easier, right? Like this God that, created us, loves us, is looking forward to seeing us face to face one day. If I want to intellectually explain this God away, then maybe I'm off the hook on having a responsibility to myself first and others next because it suspends the morality.
Yeah,
Like,
oh,
am I
yeah.
the only one that's tempted by that?
No, no. I read this book called The Atheist Guide to the Universe or The Atheist Guide to Reality or something, written by an atheist. I think his name is Alex Rosenberg. And he was just, he's like, look, I don't believe in God. And because there is no God, there is no right and wrong. These are just, constructs that people agree with at a certain time. There's no absolute wrong. If you want to shoot a 3-year-old, well, it's a crime because we've decided there's a crime, but there's nothing inherently immoral about raping a baby because it just is what it is. So I
There is
think
no thing
there
as moral, so therefore nothing can be against morals. Yeah.
Right. If there is no God, then there is no morality. And he was very blunt in in that concession. And I think that's just where you leave the rational. I think all you need to do is look at history, look at communism and fascism of the last century, and you have no morality. So I don't think that's a stretch. I think that's the real face of not believing in God.
Is it tempting to you? Like,
Is it
do you do
tempting
you,
to
do you
me?
share the same sort of like, man, this sucks, man, this is hard. Like, if only I could justify.
No. When
No,
I sin, I sin. I don't
really?
I
You
don't
must be a better person than me.
I don't no, I don't have no, I'm not saying I don't sin. I'm saying when I sin, it is with the full knowledge that God is judging me. It is with the full knowledge that this is wrong. I don't make, I've met people who are like, oh well, maybe it's not really wrong to X, Y, and Z. No, I know it's wrong, and I choose
No,
to
it's not. It's
engage
not
in the
a
sin.
maybe. It's a I wish that I could get to the maybe, right? Like I'm not tempted
No.
by. Like I'm not intellectually challenged by it. I'm tempted by it as a more sort of convenient alternative where, if so, then I would have, sort of less responsibility in this whole thing.
Mitch, is Mitch still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of Nietzsche, right? Like this idea of God is dead, we'll never be able to clean up the blood, etc. Um, the temptingness of it, dude. I forget who it was. I recently heard this, and it was intellectual exercise. Is like, we live in a time. So the argument is that why is the world more screwed up today than it was a few hundred years ago? It's because the genie is more powerful, and the genie, quote unquote, being technology and like the ability to like easily go after our whims and have all those desires taken care of, right? So we ask a genie for X, Y, Z, you get it instantly. Not much is different between I wish I had groceries, click a button, groceries are here. Um, and then take that to everything. And the theory would be that only those who have to be moral, like have no choice but to be moral because they don't have the ability to like access the genie, or those who are extremely privileged can be virtuous. And I don't know what to think about that. I think it's an interesting kind of idea of like the middle is always going to be the least virtuous. They have this, they can like touch the genie, if you will, much easier and have this no repercussions if you don't believe in God. So I think is it stories from underground or one some Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky in general kind of at a young age kind of slapped that notion. Every time I do something wrong, it's more like the guilt that's killing me than it is this fear of meeting Saint Peter and being like kicked down south. Um, it's more like, do I live as though God exists or not? So the question I think Mina's asking is, it would be enticing to live a world where you don't believe God exists and then be
Mm.
act that way, right? So the way we act today, we act as though God exists and we have a soul. That soul can be damaged. And then to act in a way that doesn't do that is an interesting, like if I got amnesia and like forgot all of my upbringing, all of everything,
Yes.
would I still act as though God exists? It is tempting, days when I like have moments of like being a shitty father, excuse me, just being a bad father or being a bad husband. I'm just like, dude, this would be so much easier if I could just like eject and do what I want and live a hedonistic lifestyle. Um, yeah, but I've seen too much, man. I've been around those people, the people that don't believe, and like classic oil field examples, like people who live to the life on 11, just all the time, everywhere. And they're just something about they lived as though God didn't exist, but everyone around them suffered as though it did, as though God
Mm.
exists.
Mm.
That's kind of like what I took from like Dostoevsky being around like the oil field boom world where like most people are on meth, most people are on drugs, prostitution's everywhere. And as you're like the only one you think you're like the only one that's being affected by this, even though everyone is like 80% of the individuals are dealing or doing this hedonistic life, it's still like reverberating around society and causing pain because even though you don't believe it, your failures prove that God exists because it is hurting others down the line. At least
But
that's
the
my experience.
consequences of your denial are still there.
You still hurt people. And
Right.
yeah, even the people who also are atheists, like it's still acting as though God doesn't exist has real life consequences, not just to yourself, not just to your family, but to the world writ large.
Right.
The opposite is also potentially true, right? So when you were saying like amnesia, right? And I wake up and, I have to just sort of judge things by its own merits, not based on like my, generational trauma or upbringing or whatever. It could be a positive thing, right? Like maybe maybe I'd be a better Christian if I had the amnesia, right? Like on the one hand, I want to forget God. Um, and if I can forget God, then I wouldn't feel so guilty and I could just do bad things and not feel bad about them. But what if the amnesia was not a forgetting of God, but a forgetting of self, right? If I forgot myself and my own, sort of shortcomings or whatever, I would be able to be more curious, be more open, be more, be less judgmental, be more,
Be
able
Saint
to,
Teresa of the Lista. That's yeah. I
yeah.
think about that. I think about it all the time. Like why can't I just be the little flower? Wouldn't life be so much easier if I was?
Right. Like whatever less myself I can
Yeah,
be is probably a step in the right direction. Actually,
yeah.
I just read this book, Games People Play. Have you guys ever heard of this or
No,
read
but
this?
is it good?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it was written in the 60s and he basically boils down every social interaction to a transaction. It's like this is what this person is trying to do. This is how this person responds, and this is how they're harming each other. And he says everybody is a parent, an adult, and a child, all in one. And sometimes it's two adults speaking to each other, and that's usually healthy. But sometimes, like, somebody has a childish thing, and what they're looking for is the parental in the other person, right? So, like, the simplest thing, like, a husband doesn't do a chore, and it's because, they grew up with, oppressive parents and they just replace the oppressive parents with an oppressive wife and the bait is doing the wrong thing and the itch that they're trying to scratch is the wife being like like you're so blah 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 and the husband's not actually like upset by this. The husband feeds on this, right? Like the whole setup, the whole game that we're playing is that. And he's got like these clever names for like the games, or like see what you made me do, or I'm trying my best, or like whatever it is. And the point isn't for us to have, any kind of progress or healthy relationship. The point is to
The
play the
game.
game. And he says, if we can make ourselves aware of these games, and we can replace the game, and this is like the last 10 pages, right? Like the whole book is like games, 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 and the last 10 pages is like, instead we should be more aware. And he gives the example of like a little kid that's like listening to the birds. It's like the birds are so beautiful, and the dad, who's like well-meaning, tells him the names of the birds, and like this is the song that this bird sings, and that's the song that that bird sings. And now that wonder, that like, appreciation, that awareness of just how beautiful the birds are is replaced by, wait, what did my dad say? Like, what's this song? Like, which bird is that? And it's all like now like technical stuff instead of
Yeah.
just the joy. So that awareness can lead to spontaneity, that spontaneity can lead to intimacy. And what we're missing is intimacy, and we're replacing it with all these games that are
Yeah, man.
justifying our own egos, that are products of our own trauma. So yeah, it's actually a humiliating book to read.
Yeah, it sounds rough. Yeah, I went like it. I'm sure you can pick out the game played most between you and your wife very
Oh,
quickly.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you have to resist the temptation to pick out the game that your wife is playing, right? You want to pick out the game that you're playing. The whole point of it is not like to
More
see.
fun.
Like,
You're right. No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, it's like when you go to confession and you have to resist the temptation of confessing for everyone else.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
Mina's confession, right? But instead of Mina's confession, it's like, well, you know, between you and me, Abuna, like the real
Let me
problem is,
let me tell
and
you a story.
and I mean, it's definitely just like the whole, God thing is easier if like I'm not beholden to anyone, I'm not responsible for anything, and like, oh, whatever, like, God doesn't exist, I can do whatever I want. But the reality is, okay, sure, like you can explain God away, but like you guys said, like the negative consequences of your bad behavior or your poor choices as a result of this so-called lack of existence of God are still there, right?
So would
Yeah,
your life
man.
change? So would your if all of a sudden you woke up tomorrow and they found the unmistakable, provable
No,
bones of Jesus?
no, no, no.
They found them, they're there. It's that okay, he didn't resurrect. It's just a made up story, whatever it is. Would your how would your life change? If there is no God and it's provable to you beyond all shadow of doubt somehow, again, we're playing a game.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
How would your life change?
I don't think mine would, Mitch.
Confession time. It would change a little bit, I think. Um,
Who would you kill? You'd go kill someone?
no. No, I think my belief that there is an unmoved mover cannot, I'm pretty settled on that, and I act that way. Jesus being part of that Trinity that I don't understand has been enriching and helpful in everything I do. But if it turns out that he was a prophet, not the son of God, it wouldn't change the fact that there's an unmoved mover, and therefore I would act the same. How I communicate to that unmoved mover, like day to day, my personal prayer would change. So would words, not if we're gonna play this game, right? It would change in words and like how I communicate to that unmoved mover. Um, but it wouldn't change how I acted, right? Because I still think no one gets away with anything. And that is how I act.
Well, I think there's a universal, karmic equation. You reap what you sow. I mean, I think that's a universal truth that um that Jesus works around through grace, right?
Mm.
But I think if Jesus isn't God, St. Paul said, if Christ hasn't been raised from the dead, then you are still in your sins and we are to be the most pitied of men, he said, So if Christ hasn't been raised, then there is no God. And then it's just a free for all. Then you're just, you know, uh then you're not bound by anything, you know.
So when I think about this, I think of it um, differently, but with similar consequences, which is in the fourth century when all these Christological controversies were settled. What if they got it wrong, right? Because on the one hand, we do believe that God speaks through the church and God um, inspires people through the Holy Spirit to speak on God's behalf. And we, at least for the first three councils, like for Nicaea, Constantinople, and Ephesus, we believe that this is a pretty universal understanding of all Christians. Um, I also do think that we started to get it wrong. So how the Second Council of Ephesus was run in 449 and Chalcedon was run 2 years later in 451, I think those were the Holy Spirit really trying his best to counsel the church and get everybody on the same page. And it is possible for people to decide, you know what, like, no, like I'm not listening to the Holy Spirit and I don't care about getting this right. I care about being right, right? So us getting this right is a different thing from I want to be the one to get his way. So if at some point or another, we're confused about who God is. For me, that's equally problematic as to some sort of evidence to the contrary, right? One way or another, there's a confusion about Christ's role, who Christ is, what Christ came to do for us. And that internal disagreement, I think, is even more problematic than any kind of external, right? Because you could, dismiss any kind of scientific evidence. You'd be like, those guys don't know what they're talking about. Because sometimes it's true, right? Like when they were talking about, the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin has gone back and forth like 1,000 times. Oh, it's authentic. No, it's not authentic. Oh, incontrovertible scientific evidence that it is, incontrovertible scientific evidence that it's not. So I think the greater danger is not, this boogeyman science evidence thing. It's our own internal disagreement, which I think to a great extent, um, approaching um, apophatic questions cataphatically is a problem, right? So things that should be fuzzy, and we want to make a declarative statement like how Jesus is fully human and fully divine. There are things that you can say that are true without mingling, without confusion, without alteration. His divinity pardoned not from his humanity for a single moment or a twinkling of an eye. This is, the Chalcedonian formula, and it's in the confession at the end of the Coptic Creed. So everybody agrees on that, but then you start to get into like deeper, quote unquote, deeper things. They're not deeper, they're just more confusing. And then you start saying, well, did Christ have, one will or two wills? That is unnecessary confusion, right? Like you're getting into the weeds of something that like 3 questions ago you should have said, well, like that's about as good as we can do. Let's not argue about it any further. Let's just accept that Christ is one of the Trinity and he's his own hypostasis and he's fully human and fully divine. Use whatever language you want. So yeah, I like for me,
I'm
that was
reminded.
the reason I said no, it wouldn't affect me at all, simply because, I'm more concerned about internal heresies than an external, you know, dogmatic things.
I don't want to jump down this too far, but it's just a joinder to that. I mean, there's a thing my dad always talks about, and he's a dairy farmer, right? So like time is limited. Every time you like come up with a solution, he goes, "Well, what problem are you trying to solve? If that
Right,
problem doesn't reach a bar, then like it's not a real problem."
right,
Yeah.
right. And
Oh, yeah.
if we believe that, Christ was incarnate, died, resurrected, um, united our humanity with his divinity, good.
Everything
Um,
else is it may be a problem, but it's not. We have bigger fish to fry to keep the cows fed.
right. And most of these issues were resolved by the early fifth century. And at that point, they were like, let's start splitting hairs to create division for the sake of division, instead of let's, try to understand things better. At least that's my personal interpretation. And I think others share that same interpretation of sort of how things went down with these Christological controversies. So
All right,
Ralph,
so
like,
yeah,
would it change for you?
yeah, what changed for you, man?
Would it change for, yeah, if, well, the people I love, the people I love not because God tells me to love them, but and I'm talking about the handful of people that I love. Everyone else whom I love is because God's told me to love them,
Yeah.
So I will not love them anymore. There are many people I would enjoy hating, and many people I would enjoy not forgiving, and many people I would enjoy holding a grudge against, and many people I would enjoy feeling envy about, and many people I would enjoy wishing the worst for instead of praying for them. So it would change me in very real ways because I pray for my enemy because Christ told me to pray for my enemy. And if Christ is just, some first century Oprah guy, it's like I don't need to listen to Oprah. I don't want to listen to Oprah. I want to be, maybe you guys incline towards the love. I incline towards you know, the grudge
Sword.
and the hate. Yeah. So that's me.
But how
So
long would that last? I get the sort of short term sort of like, whew, I'm glad I don't have to work so hard anymore. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. But how long would that happen before you start facing the consequences?
It'll be
No?
forever. Like what consequences? Like,
Well,
my neighbor who has his dog poop on my lawn all the time. I don't have a neighbor who has a dog poop on his lawn, but I could imagine there being some hostility towards a person who consistently encroaches upon places where he knows he doesn't belong. And I would, instead of, dealing with it in a civil matter, I could understand being hateful and angry, or the woman in church who, who sings really horribly all the time. I would, one, I'd stop going to
I
church,
mean, yeah, you
but
wouldn't have that problem.
but
That would
but
be a
before
great.
before I stopped going, I'd say, something, Midvet. That's not even, you sing horribly, no one likes you, and your shoes are ugly too. And I would leave, Uh, it would last forever. I would not get tired
But do
of
you think
hate.
you'd be better off?
What I don't Am I better off now? I don't know.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and I like in my head it sounds good. But the reason I got from like raised super Catholic, mostly atheist, and then back was because I realized that the things Jesus teaches us, not only are they good for good sake, but also they're true as in if you act them out, the world gets better around you. Everything he said is true to its turtle, it's got all the way down. It's true because it makes the world better. And like I love that I try not to hold I could try to apologize quickly and then hold good shortly. But that time in between is delicious, and it's fun to be like, "Ooh, this son of a," and then you're like, "Oh, well, this is actually I'm turning on this thing longer than I should be. I just need to like let it go because it's not just it's gonna hurt everyone around me if I continue to hold this." So yeah, I hear you, but I think again, maybe it's too much Dostoevsky at a young age, but I really do think like the quicker you're able to forgive and the quicker you apologize, the world gets better around you and it makes everyone better. Like, would you like, all right, this is a question. That's for you. Would you teach if God didn't exist, what would you teach your kids? Would you teach your kids to hold a grudge or would you tell them to apologize or, love their XYZ? How would you, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but how would you teach the people you care about?
There are entire populations of people who either stuck in a Hindu caste system where they look down on untouchables and different people in different castes who have grown that way for 2,000 years, who have no idea about forgiveness. You can be a Muslim who is not, ensconced in, Christian virtue of the last 20 years. I mean, I hear Muslim preachers talk about love your neighbor. Like that's not in Islam. So they're like adopting this stuff, but there have been swaths, billions of people who've lived their lives very well, holding grudges, raping people, not thinking a single, and going to sleep very, very well with every single one of their
The Old Testament.
gluttonous, yes,
Yeah, fair
wants
point.
filled. So yeah, I mean,
It's a fair point.
if my kid grew up in Somalia, let's just say, since that's been in the news lately, they wouldn't feel guilty stealing. They wouldn't feel guilty robbing. They'd feel guilty doing nothing. Or Nigeria, where you kill 30,000 Christians, or they wouldn't feel that. It's not. I mean, I think our Western world is polluted by Christianity. And I say that in a good way. It is it is in the air we breathe. The idea of justice and fairness and forgiveness and love and all these things are Christian notions, but the rest of the world is exists in a pre-Christian state. So what would I teach my child? I teach my child get what's yours and be sure that that son of a bitch on the hill doesn't get what's his because you only have a eat, drink, and be merry because you only have 80 years on this life. You
Even
know?
like to your point, even the Leviathan, the book the
Yeah.
Leviathan, it
Yeah.
has Christian undertones, even though
Yeah.
it is supposed to show what the world would be like. It still has. It's a fair quote. Where like it's even in that DNA. Interesting.
So we got a minute left, and I think we have time for another episode, right?
Yeah, it's running
So
fast.
we can post this one today, the 26th, and then hold out on everybody until the following Monday, February 2nd. And I think, where we're stuck here, before we end this on a cliffhanger, as we like to do, is that it holds water that doing the right thing matters and good things happen when you do the right thing. It also holds water that you may never discover that truth empirically, right? So, like knowing what you know, like, are you better off with this sort of ignorance is bliss, and I'd be better off, not knowing God and I could do whatever I want, or is it more beneficial to know God and live a life with God, even though that might not be as easy sometimes.
Yeah, the
Good.
choice between the white pill and the black pill is very much a choice.
Right. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
back to the Matrix again. Okay, so let's stop for today, and we'll be back in a few minutes for us, but in a week for you on I Mustache You Something.